Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Mac Outdoors with Mia and Lea. We are happy that you're here with us again. Hopefully you've listened to the other two episodes in our three-part series about the archery elk hunt that I went on. This is Mia, that I went on this fall, and we're going to finish it up today.
This winter, stay warm from head to toe with WSI Sports' heater gear layers. Use Lea's affiliate code LLCO10 at WSISports.com and get 10% off your order. All products are proudly made in the USA. WSI Sports is bringing back pride in American-made clothing. That code once again, LLCO10 for 10% off at WSISports.com.
Hey, this is Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, host of the Armed Lutheran Radio podcast, reminding you that the podcast you're listening to is a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network. Check out all the great content at selfdefenseradio.net.
Hey guys, welcome back. So, if you haven't listened to the first two episodes of my mom's archery elk hunt, go back right now and listen to those two and then join us here. This week, we're going to be talking about the gear that helped her get this awesome bull, that helped her trek through the wilderness and sneak up on some crazy elk.
That's for sure. Sneaking was very important, and it always is important in archery hunting. Actually, sometimes you don't have to be sneaky. You can be noisy, but it definitely does help. I mean, I have friends who even hunt in their socks when they're archery hunting. So being sneaky is important. If you're looking for socks, since I just mentioned them, I wear farm to feet socks quite a bit. They give me socks at SHOT Show every year, and I just love those socks. And WSI Sports, who we have our advertisement, and Lea has the affiliate link. I wear WSI socks quite a bit as well, especially in cold temperatures, because they have heater gear that reacts with your body and keeps you warm. So those definitely are a must-have in your bag. I even take them in September in case there's chilly nights. You can put those on while you're sleeping and stay toasty. So WSI gear, and not just because Lea is affiliated with them, but we definitely believe in WSI. That's why we shout it out and support it. So just so you know.
So let's start off with camping. Of course, out here you're going to have to pack some sort of tent or bedroll and stuff like that. So what do you use out here in the great outdoors?
So we have used, Sportsman's Guide has a teepee tent that is pretty cool. It's pretty lightweight. It's not super durable, but it's definitely great for summertime. But for this hunting trip, we were going to be there for extended periods of time. Sometimes you have snow in archery season. We definitely wanted something durable that was going to last through snow, wind, sleet, and hail, which we talked about that on the last episode. So we have Ellis Canvas Outfitter tents, and we talked with Dave Ellis, and he actually makes a tent called the Shackleton tent. And this tent is so awesome because it's a reduced size, super lightweight canvas, so it's still canvas, which means it's durable. But the Shackleton that we've got, it is a 10 by 10, and we can fit 3 to 4 people in there plus our gear. And the way it's shaped, you'll have to look it up. It's at elliscanvastents.com and look up the Shackleton tent. It weighs 28 pounds. And it fits perfectly in the soft panniers, and you can throw bedrolls on the other side, or you can put the tent on one side with the bedroll and then the bedroll on the other side with other gear to balance out the packs. And it just is a breeze to put up. It has one center pole, kind of like a teepee, and then you stake out the corners to extend it. And the way it's designed, it kind of is like a mushroom. It pops up and out. So when it does snow, the snow slides away from the tent and isn't resting on the sides of the tent like it would with that teepee tent. So that Ellis Canvas tent, I highly recommend them. And we buy stuff from him all the time. We don't get discounts or sponsor money from him at all. He just builds quality stuff. So we really like that tent.
Does this tent, could it be packed in a backpack, or is there a smaller size available to people that don't get the opportunity to pack horseback?
That's a very good question, because a lot of people don't get to pack horseback. And he has a ton of different styles of tents, and he actually builds bags that have backpack type straps on them for some of his tents. And if you have an idea, this is partly why we just really enjoy working with Dave Ellis, is if you have an idea, he will take that to the drawing board and he'll just whip it out and create it on his sewing tables. And it's amazing to see what he makes. And then the bedrolls, Leah and I both have bedrolls, which I packed mine up there, and the bedrolls, they're super warm. So if you didn't have the tent, you could just actually camp in your bedroll. The way it's designed, you can pop it up and you can camp in that bedroll, and I love that. It's awesome when it's cold, and then when it's hot, you just pull the canvas flap off and you can stay cool.
In your bedroll, I know we all pack different things in there, but what are some options to do in a bedroll?
So there's a lot of options, and what we've been doing are air mattresses, which you can inflate with your hand. You use your hands to pump up those air mattresses. So you can do that. Then you don't have to carry a pump, a hand pump or an electric pump. And you can also use Tempur-Pedic foam pads. That is amazing to sleep on when you're up there. And that's something where if you have the availability to use horses, that's great when you have those foam pads, because they definitely make the bedrolls bulky. And that's why we like that air mattress, because it just is flat as could be. And it has individual baffles, so you're not sleeping on lumps or bumps and stuff like that. Actually, Leah had a baffle that went out in hers one year, and the company replaced it right away. And I'll have to look up the name of the air mattress, and I'll put it in the show notes, because I can't think of it off the top of my head right now.
That's great. Along with camping and being in the wilderness for 18 days, how do you do meal prep? What do you pack, and what's your favorite meal?
We do have the aid of horses, but we still try to pack really light. We don't want to put a lot of strain on them. And we try not to take too many horses, because the more horses we have, the more feed is required, which they free feed out there. We lash them out. But with those horses, I'll tell you some more about them in a minute, but we pack Mountain House meals, dehydrated food, and we also bring cheese, blocks of cheese. We bring summer sausage and salami, smoked oysters, canned smoked oysters. A real treat that I always love when I'm up there is chicken and biscuit crackers with squeezed cheese, which is something that I hardly ever eat at home. It's just a hunting camp thing. So we do have that. And my very favorite meal is Mountain House's chicken fajita. And it is awesome even if you're not camping, but at camp it's awesome to have chicken fajitas, and I'll bring mini, what are those tortillas called?
The street taco tortillas.
Street taco tortillas. I'll bring those up there, and we'll just slice up some cheese and put it on those fajitas, and that is awesome after a day of hard work.
And of course, I have done this meal with her before, and to heat up the tortillas, we don't have a pan, but we put them on a hot rock. So I love that part of camping, is just, you don't need any pans or anything like that. You just build a little fire and cook on the heated rock. So that's a fun part about it.
Yeah, and that's something, Leah wasn't down here this fall, but we in Colorado, we are in a severe drought. We've been in the drought for several years now, but this year we had fire bans, so we weren't able to build a fire. Plus, we're hunting, and we really don't want to smoke out the animals and stuff like that. So when you're hunting, what you can do is we bring a jet boil and a propane cell for the jet boil, and you can actually use the jet boil to heat up your tortillas as well, so that's perfect. I know some people don't heat their tortillas, which I guess maybe we're a little too Mexican for that, but it's kind of like eating a raw tortilla. You have to heat your tortilla even if you're at camp.
It's called a wrap.
Yes, it's not a burrito, it's a wrap. Oh, too much.
Anyway, I know we use some interesting tools for eating and cleaning up at camp. Do you want to share some of the cool items that we have for?
You bet. So for eating, I actually we have a couple of different things, but for utensils, we have a case knives, one of their hobo knives, and that has a sharp knife and a spoon and a fork. And you actually open it, you fold it open, and it comes apart into separate pieces, which I really like because then you're not, some of them are, if you get camp tools, they're looped together by a ring and you're eating and you've got a fork and a knife flopping around and stuff like that. Where this, it folds up, it's the size of a pocket knife, and it works really well. So that's one thing. We also have flat bowls. They're snap bowls, and you flatten it out. It can be a plate, or you fold it together and you snap the sides and you have a bowl. And those are super easy to use. They're really easy to clean. And actually the ones we've had, I want to say we've had them for 5 or 6 years, and we use them for pack trips, for hunting, for raft trips. And they've lasted really well. So when we first got those, I thought they would crack because they look like the plastic might get brittle, but they've lasted really well.
Yeah, they're all really easy to use, and I know I love using them for everything we do out at camp.
Yeah, and something else she's talked about cleaning up and stuff. So I always like to have a very clean, tidy camp, and so I always keep a tidy camp, but we also use a filtration bag for our water, and it's a gravity bag, so you can dip it in a creek or a stream or a lake or a pond and fill it with water, and you hang it in a tree, and the gravity will pull the water through the filtration filter, and then you have filtered water. And you can use that to either fill a Nalgene jug or your water jugs or whatever, but then you have water to clean with as well. And so that works super good.
Yes.
Yes. And speaking of water, when we are out hiking around, I have a backpack that I've been demoing, and everything is kind of encased inside the backpack. And so I haven't been too super proud of that backpack. I'm not fond of it because I like to have an outside pocket where I can put a water bottle. And the company that sent me that one, the one I said I'm not fond of, they said, well, use a bladder. And here's the thing, when you're hunting in Colorado, is when it gets cold and freezes, even your bladder will freeze. And when you're hunting in tough areas where you're climbing steep terrain, you need that water. So we use Life Straw filtration bottles, and you can fill that anywhere the filter is on there. And it also won't freeze up as quickly as the bladder seems to, even though the bladder's inside the backpack. I definitely like filtration bottles, so we carry those with us as well.
Speaking of hiking, do you have any recommendations for footwear for people to try out or things like that? I know all of us wear something different, but what's a recommendation?
So this is a question I've actually had, and I've written about it in a few publications. And footwear for hunting varies depending where you're hunting, but I'll tell you about hunting in the Rocky Mountains in steep terrain, climbing, not just up the mountains, but up rocks and stuff like that. And I always recommend like a deep lug sole on your shoe. Look for that. Something with ankle support I usually suggest, and that's something that I recommend for people so they don't roll an ankle. But then, like Leah and Hank both like a lightweight. They don't like something heavy. They both hunt in their Solomon hiker shoes, and they look like a tennis shoe. But those Solomons are made by hiking and rock climbing, and the rubber on the sole has a great grip. So that's why they like that, because it gives you arch support and supports your foot without getting cramps. And so look for that. I have had a pair of Danner boots, Lady Danners, and they don't make these anymore, but they've just come out with a new one in the past year that looks comparable, and I'm going to have to check them out at SHOT Show to see, because they sent me something to review a couple years ago that was just terrible. But these Danner boots, they're They're leather and they're waterproof. They keep my feet warm if it's, a little bit of snow. And so I can wear those with gaiters even when I'm mountain lion hunting in the winter. I really like those. The one that I found and I have my eye on for when these wear out is a Kenetrek Lady Hunter boot. And that's next on my list if Danner hasn't come out with this boot that's comparable to the old one.
Yeah, I know that I used to hunt in my regular tennis shoes, and then I got those Salomons, and I love hiking in them. They're super comfortable. I throw on gaiters over the top of them when we're hunting in the snow. They're waterproof. When I shot my deer, which we'll share a story about that in a couple weeks, but I had to walk through a creek and my shoes are waterproof, so I love that about them. And my feet usually stay pretty warm considering that they're just a tennis shoe.
Yeah, and that's something when you're hunting and we talk about being up there for 18 days. That was in 3 different trips, which we talked about in one of the previous episodes. But you don't want to be wearing a shoe or a boot that's going to give you a hot spot or create a blister. And a hot spot is where it rubs you and you start to get that achy burn. You don't want that while you're up there because you don't have time to stop and worry about your feet. You just want them to be happy and feel good. For sure, don't get a boot like the day before season starts. Make sure you get it well ahead so that it's broke in if it needs to be broken in. And the thing with Leah Solomons is they had no break-in period. They were comfortable the first day she wore them. And that's true with the Danners that I have. The day I put them on, they were ready to go. So that's, to me, a sign of a good fitting boot. And a good quality boot is it's not hurting you to start off with. You don't have to break it in. It just fits right away.
Well, now that we talked about shoes for gear, this is the ultimate question, I think, for any hunter. But what camo got you through this hunt?
The ultimate question for a hunter. I don't know. As far as camo patterns, I don't think it's important. But what I think is important is breaking up your silhouette. And I also think it's important to have camo that fits you, that you're not having to worry about holding your pants up while you're hiking or getting stuck on twigs or branches while you're, trying to sneak up on an elk or something like that. And Sitka came out with their women's line almost 2 years ago now, and they sent me some of their subalpine Lady Sitka altitude stuff, and when I've done video reviews, you guys go look on my YouTube, you'll see a review about the ladies camo. I still love it after 2 years, and I've worn it through turkey hunting season, through archery elk, through rifle elk, through mountain lion hunting, and I'm still happy with it. Something that I want to say about the Sitka gear as opposed to some other gear that I've tried in the past is the fabric doesn't pill up. It doesn't get those fabric little balls or beat up. And so I really like that about it because I have some other gear that I thought I really liked, but it pilled, and now you sit down and you can feel these balls of, I don't know what it even is, if it's spandex material or something, but it's just not comfortable. And it also, the other gear is stretched out over time, so I kind of feel like my butt sagging, and the elk don't care about that, but it's not comfortable. And I really like a gear that you can wear and not worry about, like I said, pulling your pants up or tripping over the seams and stuff like that. So I really have been happy with that Sitka gear.
Yeah, I can't wait to try it for myself. I know I wear a lot of girls with guns. I love the pants, the tops I'm not too fond of, but I like the fit of them in the pants and everything like that, and that they are adjustable for women that have really long legs or really short legs. You can adjust that, which is really nice. And if you're riding horses or not, you can adjust that also so your ankles don't get cold, which I do like.
Yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people, I've had some gear and ladies are like, oh, it's too long because it stacks, and that's when it's long and it kind of piles over your boots. And some people don't like that, but if you are a ranchy person, if you have horses, you definitely want pants that stack over your boots, because you don't want to be on the horse and having your pants go up and getting stuff in your socks and your boots and stuff like that. And I kind of don't understand when people don't want that, because if you're sitting somewhere waiting on a turkey or something and your socks are sticking out or your ankles are sticking out, it seems weird to me, but everybody has their personal preference, and that's one of mine. I like longer pants even though I'm a short girl.
Which is why I say it's the ultimate question for a lot of hunters, because you could ask 100 different people and they're going to give you 100 different answers or combinations of camo. So there's always the cheap option that works just as good as the most expensive option, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But
you know what I've found with the cheap stuff? I found some gear that was pretty cheap, and I was like, oh, well, and it was rain gear. And I went ahead and bought it because rain gear, never works. And I know men, women, everybody, that's a big complaint is rain gear. And I bought this rain gear. It was pretty cheap. And right away, I ended up with my shotgun shells were down by my ankles because the pocket stitching ripped out the first time I wore them. Do you remember that?
yeah.
And so definitely go with some quality. One thing with Sitka is they have lifetime warranty, and you can send that stuff in and they'll repair it, which I totally appreciate that. And speaking of lifetime warranties and companies that take care of their customers, is you haven't asked me about optics and lifetime warranties and customer service. I mean, I'm not sponsored by Swarovski Optic, but I preach about them all day long because they have taken care of us as customers since before I ever met anybody who worked for them. I mean, we were just dealing with them over the phone over the years, and they've always been outstanding.
Yeah, that is one great thing. I know a lot of optics have started offering that, and of course Swarovski is one of the higher up, but they do take care of you, and they are amazing. I know I carry them with me on hunting trips or just driving around the mountains. I always have them with me.
Yeah, and something with that, you mentioned some other companies are offering the lifetime warranties and service and stuff like that. Lea, one time, we're talking about backpacks. Well, one of my favorite backpacks is the Alps Huntress backpack, and it's just a day pack, but I really like that pack. And Lea had taken my pack on a hunt one time when I couldn't go, and I said, just take my pack. It had my elk calls, it had my Leatherman, it had GPS, it had jet boils, it had everything in it, and I let her have the Swarovski optics, and she took those. Well, someone stole the whole backpack with the Swarovski optics in there, and Swarovski actually found those for us, and they came home. And that's something that I don't know if every company would do that for their customers, but even the police, the pawn shops, nobody located those, but Swarovski actually called us and said, hey, we've got your binoculars. Did you sell them to so-and-so? And we're all like, nope. And they brought them back to us. So it's super cool.
Yes, I loved that about the whole situation, but
yeah. Well, and Lea loved that because in the interim of having the binoculars lost, obviously it's in the fall during hunting season, I got a new set of Swarovskis. So when they came back, Swarovski polished them and serviced them before they sent them back to us, which double bonus. They were cleaned up because quite honestly, we get pretty rough and grubby, and those binoculars take a beating out there. Lea inherited those after that, and she definitely guards them with her life. Nobody wants their stuff stolen, but it's pretty cool. So Lea, I wanted to tell you about something else that this fall, Alps Outdoors sent me their Bino pack, and I had seen these packs over the years, and we ride a lot of horses, and the thing with binoculars is if you carry them in the front just with, a crooked horn strap or that style of elastic strap, they hit your saddle horn and it goes the binoculars will go right up under your sternum, and it hurts, when you're riding uphill and stuff. So I really wasn't sure about a Bino pack because it's on the front, but it's been so awesome, this Bino pack, and I actually bought some as Christmas gifts because I just love it. It holds the binoculars close to your body. It protects them a little bit more so they're not getting quite as beat up as they used to. But I can also unclip the binoculars from the harness and hand them to someone else with me if I need to. So I really recommend getting an Alps Outdoors Bino Pack. Not sponsored by them. I'm just saying I like the only thing like we have any affiliation with in this episode is WSI. So just so you guys know, we're just telling you about some stuff that we really like.
I think one more topic that's broad enough for us to share about is calls. I know a lot of archery hunting, you get into the beginning of the rut for elk, and sometimes later seasons you're into it a little more. So I know we've gotten a few new calls, as well as decoys or other items that help draw in those bulls. So what's something that you love to use?
So I want to tell you about what worked, because we have a lot of elk calls.
Yes.
And Leah knows how to use a lot of elk calls. And anytime we're out shopping, if we see something new, we buy it, and some stuff ends up in the woods with us and some stuff doesn't. This year, what worked was the Native mouth reeds. So Native is by Carlton Calls, and we've always loved Carlton Calls. But the mouth reeds by Native, those elk loved them. And I don't care which one, but they all worked. So that's what those are the ones if you want to know which ones. Yeah. Yes. And cow calling and bugling, that if you haven't hunted elk yet, that all varies depending on what the elk are doing. And in this area, it also varied because those elk didn't get pressured too much, so we were able to try some different things that don't work in the high pressure areas.
I know with calling, it's something that we've probably not really mentioned a lot, but preparing for a hunt, I think that's another thing that you have to work on, just like your fitness. Get your cow call fitness in. I know when I do it year round, even if I haven't hunted in elk in 2 years, I think, but I always have cow calls in my truck, and I'll cow call away while I'm driving, and I have all my bugles at my apartment, and I know my neighbors probably hate me, but I practice my bugling with a young bull to a big loud bull, chuckling to all kinds of random noises you couldn't imagine an elk would do. They do it, and it's fun to try it. So I think that's something everyone should try before they go on an elk hunt.
Yep. And like she said, that's the perfect time, I think, to practice is if you have a drive, whether it's a long drive or a short drive, nobody else is there. You don't have to be embarrassed. You don't have to scare away an animal, but you can just practice while you're driving.
Yeah, and especially with mouth reeds, I think they're a lot more challenging. Some people pick it up right away, but with the mouth reeds, there's a lot you can do with those. And with a mouth reed, also, it is always good to try them out before you go out in the field, because a lot of the times these mouth reeds can be really big, and it's as simple as trimming them down. Sometimes you can they make kids mouth reeds, which I've had for turkey hunting, but for a lot of the elk reeds I've had to trim off a little bit of the back of the mouth reed so it'll fit more comfortably and not feel so awkward and bulky and my mouth all calling.
And that's something for any of you, if you have a real sensitive gag reflex, that's totally something you can do is, as Leah said, start at the back, just trim a little sliver off, try it again, and do that until it's comfortable. But don't start by trimming away, a half an inch or something. Just do it little by little until it feels comfortable, and that will help with that gag reflex. And then the more you practice with them, the more used to it you'll get, and hopefully you won't have that reaction when you put them in your mouth.
And as we mentioned with decoys, I know we shared in a previous episode a funny story about using those, but what decoy did you use on this hunt?
So this hunt, we used the Montana decoys, and we used the cow elk decoy. And not just the cow elk. We had the broadside cow, and then we had the rear end of the cow. But a couple times we took a shed of antler up there, and a couple times we used that shed antler with the broadside cow. And actually that made some of the cows curious. They came, and then the bulls would follow them. So that's always something like think out of the box and try to think like an elk. What would an elk want to see? And this elk is wanting to fight. Maybe he wants to see something with antlers. You can use a twig or a branch or something to look like antlers if you want to.
Yeah, and I know with rutting bulls, sometimes just as whitetail hunters rake as deer fighting, you can simply scrape a tree or break a tree branch, or even if you manage to pack an antler up or find one sometimes and rub those on trees and break branches, sometimes that's all it gets to get them fired up. So
yep, that's for sure. And it just takes a little experimenting and a lot of patience. Always remember to be patient. You don't have to try everything at one time. Just try a couple things. Don't go crazy with all that.
Yeah. It doesn't all work at once.
So I have something else that I want to talk about today. We're talking about elk, and I wanted to talk about Lea. Got some good news with Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation. And Lea, tell us about your internship.
So I applied and got accepted to be an intern at Bugle Magazine out at Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, which is right near where I go to school. So that's super awesome. I get to see all the behind the scenes of how Bugle works and how Rocky Mountain Elk works. So I'm super excited to see all the crazy things that go on with a magazine being published, as well as the amazing people I'm going to meet. I know I have gone through their magazines and seen so many familiar faces from that I've met at SHOT Show, NRA, and friends on Facebook. So it'll be a great experience.
Yeah, so stay tuned for more info from Lea. I'm sure she'll have some stuff for us, and I'm sure she's going to learn more than we ever thought we knew.
Yes, so if you want to see my writing in Bugle Magazine, be sure to go subscribe to that, and you will see my name in print probably the beginning of the new year. So
Yeah.
be sure to check those out. I can't wait for everyone to read them.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about that. And one way to subscribe to Bugle Magazine is to become a member of the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation that supports conservation and habitat for elk all around the country. So go check it out.
And I will be sharing stories about these awesome elk all over the country, and could be even interviewing you soon enough if you're involved. So be sure to follow me in my adventure on social media, Lea_Huntress, and you can follow my mom, Mia Anstine, on her Instagram, because we love sharing our adventures with all of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our gear recommendations for your hunt.
We'll put links to all of them in the show notes if you're interested in anything.
We will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.